Welcome back to Straight Facts. Man like the Don Hussam is here with me today. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Happy to be here as per usual. This is a very good show for me to just speak the truth, because the people want to hear the truth. But as always, I know it's actually a reverse of what you intend to have with the title, but I must put it out there, just to annoy you a little bit. But I'm happy to be here as always, and this is gonna be a great show, man. Great show, because there's a lot to talk about.
There is. And viewers, we're going to be touching on Pochettino to Chelsea. That is over the line, according to a lot of journalists, with a handful of basic details to resolve, but he will be the Chelsea manager. We're looking at Arsenal going big, massive contracts for Saka, massive deals being offered to Declan Rice. Is that the right direction for Arsenal as they look to end this season strong? We're looking at the top four race. We're going to get the Dons' opinion on whether or not Man United will bottle the top four. We're also going to take a look at Neymar, and is he overrated, and should Premier League clubs be wanting to buy him, with Man United, Newcastle and Chelsea all linked with a summer move? And of course, what we're going to start with, though, is last night's Champions League exploits. Real Madrid won, Man City won. What was your take of the game overall, mate?
I think it was an incredible game, to be honest with you. And like I would say neutral, but I'm not really a neutral. Like, I want City to lose. This specific competition is where I'm 100% against Man City. I think it was an unbelievable game to watch, and it was very tactical as well. I think like it was a little bit of a cagey game, just kind of a typical semi-final. I was kind of a little bit disappointed in Real Madrid because I expected a bit more from them, but I think overall it was probably the fair result. However, here's the thing now, going forward in this fixture in general, I've seen some City fans, even some other fans of other fan bases, maybe say this tie is over, etc. Thing is, the reason why Real Madrid win so many of these, and they're just unbelievable in this competition, is Tuesday and Wednesday is just regular Tuesday, regular Wednesday for them. They really don't care. Like Etihad, Anfield, Old Trafford, San Siro, like they generally couldn't care less. Like they just go on that pitch and they dominate. I thought yesterday, for me, Man City defensively played really well. And this is something maybe usually we don't say about them. In midfield, I thought Rodri was unbelievable. KDB, I don't think had the best of games, even though he scored. The front line for me, Erling Haaland, I was actually surprised, not because he didn't score, because it's normal for a striker to not score like every single game. I was surprised that maybe from a positional sense, maybe from the sense of him making the runs in behind, maybe from him getting into dangerous positions, he wasn't really, available like that for Manchester City. Because like it's you can't expect Erling Haaland to score a goal every single game, but positionally, from the perspective of running in behind, just kind of being there in the right place at the right time, I can't lie, I did expect more from him. And to be fair to Rudiger and Alaba, I thought they both done a fantastic job yesterday on Erling Haaland together as a duo. For me, Carvajal, that performance on Jack Grealish, Gary Neville would have been clapping because he just kicked the shit out of Grealish. He didn't even attempt to defend him. Like, he just kicked the crap out of him. Carvajal could have easily been sent off. And from Real Madrid's perspective, here's for me the one mistake that Real Madrid did yesterday. And, I spoke to Real Madrid fans about this. Some disagreed, some agreed. But from Real Madrid's perspective, I thought the mistake was playing Kroos as the DM. For me, Kroos did everything well in terms of what he does usually well, which is pass the ball, dictate tempo, keep it ticking for Real Madrid. He did all of that well. But I thought Tchouaméni should have started that game, just from a physical athleticism, just from a totally different perspective, because I think Kroos got a little bit overrun in that game. Like, I really thought Tchouaméni should have started. I think the three should have been Tchouaméni, Modric, and Valverde, who I thought was their best midfielder yesterday. Vinicius just troubled them all game long. Rodrigo as well. Benzema, for me, just didn't turn up yesterday. It's funny because both strikers kind of didn't turn up yesterday. So, yeah, that would be my summary overall of the game. But it ain't over yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not over yet. And I was someone that had reservations. I just was not sure. After watching Chelsea, both in Spain and at home, have an abundance of chances against Real Madrid, I was just concerned that if they afforded that many opportunities to City, it'd be curtains. However, I don't know how much boxing you watch. There's a boxer called Tyson Fury that typically, when he fights lesser opponents or more average opponents, his performances drop. But when he gets in the ring with the better individuals, the Wilders of this world, the Klitschko's, etc., recently fought another Brit in forget his name now. Dillian White. He steps his game up to another level, and he just looks beyond world class. He looks like the best on the planet, and maybe there's a bit of that within Real Madrid, almost against
You
Chelsea.
have to earn our respect type thing.
Yeah. Maybe against Chelsea, it doesn't matter if we give them chances; they're not going to score them, and we'll outscore them anyway. Where last night they looked so up for it, Real Madrid, but so composed and comfortable out of possession, and it makes the second leg very, very exciting indeed. And I think, yeah, you're right. I think that Tchouaméni maybe should have come on a little sooner, but I felt like neither manager really wanted to make changes because the game was so evenly balanced and poised. And the best part of the game for me is the goals, the quality of both goals. I mean, they weren't identical, as in their build-up play to them both was different, but two thunderbolts from similar distances into the same corner of the same goal. What a first leg that was. And it's led a lot of people when it comes to KDB to making this claim. And I really wanted to get your take on this. Is KDB the greatest ever Premier League midfielder? Because that's the claim that's circulating on social media and the mainstream media today.
I don't think he is. And yesterday, by the way, besides the goal, I don't think he had a good game overall, to be honest with you. I really don't think he created enough chances for City. I thought when he got into the final third, he didn't do enough. Listen, I love KDB. I'm not one of the ones who have an agenda against KDB. I think the last 5 years, the best two players in this league, it's fair to say, have been KDB and Salah. I think those two have been the kind of the faces of the Premier League. From KDB's perspective, though, it's not just about, and this is where me and you disagree. It's not just about putting trophies together. I've never been that guy, because here's what works against KDB. Even if I want to use your logic of the trophy thing, in 18-19, they won the Premier League with KDB not playing there for 8 months. He didn't play a single game. He was injured all year long, and they still won the Premier League. So it questions maybe the importance of Kevin De Bruyne. Listen, Kevin De Bruyne in the Premier League, he's done it. He's done it for Man City. He's lifted his team. He's uplifted his teammates. He's a fantastic midfielder. But I think I don't have him in as the best Premier League midfielder. Maybe top 5, but I don't think he's the best. I'm taking maybe 3-4 guys over him. And for me personally, like in the Champions League, this is where he has to do it. This is where he has to do it. And some may argue that KDB isn't even the best City midfielder of all time, because they've got Yaya Toure, David Silva. Many people will argue that point as well. Like, you could speak to a City fan and ask him who's the greatest, midfielder you've ever seen. Some would tell you Yaya Toure, because they tell you that singular season they've never seen anything like it. Some would tell you David Silva, because he's so underappreciated, maybe because he's just someone who keeps it simple, keeps it ticking. So first he has to be the consensus best City midfielder of all time before he gets into that argument.
Yeah, because none of those City midfielders have ever been crowned as or really pushed as the Premier League GOAT midfielder. So if he's not City's best, he can't be the Premier League's best. That makes sense. I'm just one of these people, and people do this. And this is an area where me and you will agree, because this is where I defend Steven Gerrard a lot. Because people will say Gerrard can't be top 5, can't be top 10, never won a Premier League. And me, I don't base it purely just on trophies, although what you win is a big part. But the reason I rate Gerrard highly is because he did win trophies. He won multiple European trophies, Super Cups, UEFA League, and of course the Champions League. For the kids, the UEFA Cup is now what the Europa League is, but it used to be bigger in the early 2000s. It was treated differently, really.
It did. It did.
It won domestic trophies as well. A lot of people don't like. Oh no, you got to judge it purely. It's like a lot of people say that the Premier League Manager of the Year should be judged purely on what they did in the Premier League, and I disagree because you don't play in just the Premier League at any one particular time. If you're a manager that's gone deep into all comps and done brilliantly in the Prem, you've got a better shout than someone who's just done well in the Premier League and gone out of all the other cup competitions early because they've had less games to manage, less of a team to rotate, less problems to deal with. They haven't had a really big game on a Wednesday night and had to get the team ready for a massive game on a Saturday, as an example. You know, some teams get a weekend off if they go out in the FA Cup early because there's no Premier League games. But yet, if you go deep, you're having to manage that. To discount that is ridiculous. The same as players. So I think when you look at Lampard, you look at Paul Scholes, you look at Gerrard as examples. I think you can throw, you know, there's a few other names that will go into that as well. But
Fabregas, definitely.
Fabregas is a great example of a player that you throw into
Patrick
that.
Vieira as well.
Patrick Vieira's done it. When you look at those guys, and Patrick Vieira is a hard one in the Prem because he didn't have this. What I'm about to say, though, is those guys all had massive European moments that will live on for the next 100 years in English and Premier League football history. All of them. Fabregas, by the way, remember seeing him with a fractured leg do a masterclass against the great Barcelona team at the Emirates as an example. Paul Scholes, multiple brilliant performances in a Champions League. And the year that we went to win it, scored one of our greatest goals in the semi-final to knock out Barcelona. We know what Gerrard has done. Lampard, you know, the same, scoring in finals and everything else. And I do believe that when you're like comparing people, when they're all being compared to each other, yes, stats are important. Yes, ability is important. Yes, trophies are important. Moments as well, though. Those moments that live on forever. And I do think what he got yesterday, KDB, was he had a moment. Now, they have to win the tie for the moment to count because they get knocked out at Etihad. The goal and performance from KDB yesterday, that clutch moment, disappears because it becomes insignificant. They go through, though. That's one of his moments. That's kind of like his Scholes semi-final moment. He's Gerrard Olympiacos moment, as an example. A massive goal where they were under a lot of pressure in the game at that point to come through. So, yeah, for me, I don't look at him as the Premier League's go as of yet. Do I think he's got, if he's here another 3, 4, 5 years and keeps doing this, I think he's there's a shout for it. I just think it's slightly premature right now to crown him that. But it does seem to be a big push at the moment to crown this Man City team the greatest ever, the striker the greatest ever, the midfielder the greatest ever. And I do believe we're just being a little bit disingenuous and that there's a little bit too much recency bias.
And we're being premature as well. Like, here's the thing. Like, you know, United treble, and you know, you asked me about this on the top 6 show and the show before that, and this is why for me the United treble 99 was more difficult. For example, context matters, and like, with all due respect, City haven't won it yet. Like, City haven't done it yet. So like, the thing is, I think we're being a bit premature. Like, and by the way, I have to be fair. Some Liverpool fans were doing this last year, not me, but some were, you know, the whole quad stuff. Like, if we do the quad, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but let us do it first and then we'll say it. Thing is, from City's perspective, like, the truth is, the moments thing you said is 100% right. Because when Liverpool beat Barcelona 4-0, the Messi free kick at the Camp Nou, which was an unbelievable moment, no one recalls it. No one really speaks on it. No one looks at the 18-19 Champions League and goes like, that Messi free kick was unbelievable. They just speak on the comeback. So now, for this to actually become a moment, not only do they have to win the tie, they have to win the Champions League as well. And the truth is, even if they do get past Real Madrid, the one of the Milan sides is going to be facing them in the final. And now, of course, for me personally, I'm rooting for Inter today because I just don't trust AC Milan whatsoever. I'll be sorry with you. I think AC Milan against whoever, whether it's Madrid or Man City, the floor will get wiped with them. So for me, I trust Inter more, which is why I'm rooting for them today. But like, when it comes to this whole thing, he has to win the fixture. He has to win the Champions League. And the reason why, for me, it matters is Kevin De Bruyne is absolutely surrounded by talent from top to bottom. Kevin De Bruyne is surrounded by a complete team. So there is nothing missing in the team. He's got the manager as well in Pep Guardiola. He has it all. So he has the manager, he's got the players, he's got the bench, he's got the squad, he's got like everything is there for him, you know, to kind of take the game by the scruff of the neck and have these iconic moments. KDB's had moments for me in the Prem. He's had moments like that in the Prem, but the difference is the Champions League is won in moments. Like you can win a Champions League without being the best team in Europe. The Chelsea team that won it weren't the best team in Europe. The Liverpool that won it in 04-05 wasn't the best team in Europe. I think you need to maybe be at least a little bit respectable or good in your league to be counted the best team in Europe. Because, for example, I can make the argument 18-19 Liverpool were the best team in Europe because we got 97 points. We competed for the league. We were there. So, okay, you can make that argument. But if your team's really bad in the league and you win the Champions League, you still can't really be called the best team in Europe. So, for me, with Man City and Kevin De Bruyne, this is way too premature. Like people are just going OTT. Pep Guardiola this, KDB this guy that. Like we need to just chill out.
Win it first. And that's I was thinking that last night when they were 1-0 down. It's like if they do go out in this round, it's not even that it's being discussed. I don't think it's wrong to discuss it and say they could be. It's the way I saw, for instance, Sir Alex's teams being slagged off before City had even achieved what they've done. And it was kind of like, that's a little bit premature. And slagging them off, even if they are better, doesn't suddenly make that Man United team in 99 bad for you to start kind of attacking them. And I typically don't respect people's opinion about if somebody thinks, I don't know, if somebody thinks that Jay-Z is better than Drake, but all they do is attack Drake, or the vice versa, I kind of switch off from listening. I'm like, well, we know that neither of them are bad. So you slagging one off means that there's an issue there for me. There's a comment here that says, Terry, didn't you say that Salah was a GOAT? And see, again, you're misrepresenting what I said. I said the same thing about Salah as I'm saying about KDB. Salah is on his way to being in that GOAT conversation. KDB is on his way to being in that GOAT conversation. So no, I did not. So I did say that Salah is Liverpool's greatest ever Premier League player, but that's just my personal opinion on that. With all due respect, KDB has surpassed Steven Gerrard by a mile. Is what's
no, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. It's about context for me. Listen, I keep the same energy for everyone. Even when my argument, I can use trophies against someone, I really don't. Like I never use trophies. And the thing is, for me, here's how I look at it. If I put Gerrard in the City team, they'd have been Champions League winners by now. If I put KDB in that Liverpool team, I don't think it works. Like, I don't think we get what we get. You need to understand, Steven Gerrard, the stuff that he done for Liverpool Football Club, like, is beyond just trophies. Steven Gerrard's the reason why Liverpool have an international fan base, by the way. Like, people need to deep this. We could have easily been the Tottenham Hotspur. He's the reason why he kept us afloat almost by himself for a whole lot of the years. And even the years where we were capable of winning league titles, he always performed. But there are other reasons around him why we didn't win it all. And listen, when you go through Steven Gerrard's individual locker and all the awards he's won as an individual, it showed, like, I've seen this guy be a part of the World 11 next to Xavi and Iniesta in 08-09. Like, we're talking levels to this game. So for me, Stevie G, listen, me and Terry disagree on this, but I have him number one. He's the only Liverpool, but also Terry has to be fair. He's the only Liverpool player I actually argue as number one. I really don't argue any other Liverpool player.
I get that. In fairness, like, KDB's already in my top 5. He's already there, and I do have him above Steven Gerrard overall, because I keep my logic consistent. It's the trophies that he has delivered and the consistency of his performances within that. I understand the counter that they've won trophies without him. You could argue, Liverpool used to win more trophies before Gerrard arrived, so Gerrard's taking your team backwards if we use that same logic. So it's not.
No, that's not the same logic.
It's the same logic in reverse.
Not the same logic at all.
You're saying
the logic would be me saying Graham Souness is better than KDB because he's won more trophies. Because Graham Souness had a complete team for the KDB.
The difference with their argument is I don't put it all down to trophies, but I use trophies of fairly big weight. So that typically is what happens when I say, "Oh, does that mean Luke Chadwick's better than Mahrez?" No.
I saw Lee Gunner's post, by the way. I'm going to ask you about, did you actually say the Grealish Chadwick thing?
So let me talk about the Grealish thing with Chadwick, right? Again, it's firstly, it was me bantering, so it's not a genuine true opinion. It's a little bit of a laugh and a joke. Secondly, though, I stand by what I said in terms of performance. But what I've been saying about him in the last 6 to 8 weeks, Grealish, is what we've seen in the last 2 months is a 100 million pound player. Creativity, goals, assists, dominant performances. In my opinion, up until the last 2 months, what we saw was a guy that looked good, doing very little in games. And he got defended by a lot of City fans. He'll come good, he'll come good. And I basically said, until he comes good, I'm calling him Luke Chadwick, because City were just as good before him and just as good with him. He wasn't moving the needle for me. Now, that man is moving the needle. That man is delivering. And all I turn around and do is keep consistent with what I say and do. And if someone delivers the things I think are important, I praise them. If they don't, I criticize them. I don't really care who the individual is. And if
to be fair, just 5 months ago, people were running Grealish GA jokes. Like, people were going like, Maddison has more GA than Grealish.
And I had a bit of a laugh and a joke with it, but I always
he has to turn up though. He has to be consistent. I can't lie to you. But then the Grealish slander, I agree with, and we have to keep energy consistent. If we want to laugh at Jadon Sancho for not doing it, we also have to laugh at Grealish for not doing it. But they're just in two different teams. But like, here's the thing: he has turned up. I can't lie. Grealish the last 2-3 months, I'd say probably post World Cup has turned up for me for Man City. But pre then, I think it was probably a fair argument to make, because he just wasn't playing that well for City.
Yeah, some people ask me that's not the same logic. Well, I see it. In my head, it is. It's a cousin of the same logic. Then, if it isn't identical, if you're not going to praise KDB massively because the team was winning without him and he's maintained those levels, but yet you're praising a guy whose team won more before him than when he arrived into the team, the logic's off for me. So I don't really use either of those as I don't look at Gerrard and go, you helped make Liverpool worse because you were part of a worse era than the era that came before and after you. So like Gerrard's era was in the middle of two really good eras. I'm not going to slag off Gerrard as a footballer because he was in that era per se, although I think he's a part of that issue. Equally, I'm not going to discount KDB's brilliance because his team were very good when he arrived, because he has to maintain those consistencies. We've seen Calvin Phillips play this year, and we've seen Bravo come into this team, and we saw Mendy before he was kicked out the team, and Nolito. They've all joined a brilliant City team, and they weren't able to maintain those standards. So I do think that you can, and that's why also it isn't just about trophies, it's about everything. So I don't really like the logic that because your team was winning.
But if I put Gerrard in the City team, they're probably winning more, if anything.
Yeah, maybe they will. But then what we would be looking at is how impactful when he plays is Steven Gerrard. And he may be massively important to them. Maybe he isn't. Now, yes, they win without KDB, but that's partly to do with the brilliance of Pep Guardiola. If we look at Sir Alex Ferguson, look at some of the average 11 to 12, 13 main starters he was using in his last 2 or 3 years. There's a debate to be had whether Pep could win with that team. Could Pep win with having to play Valencia as a right back and you know?
But that's a fair debate. That's why I'm telling you, I keep the energy consistent. Remember last time when we had the Pep debate, I told you, for me, he don't even overtake Wenger yet.
No, and I understand
that's why I contextualize it. Wenger beat Ferguson. He beat the best, like one of the best teams we've ever seen, and he won 3 titles in that era. So for me, like, we can't equate just like 1 + 1 = 2 in football. Context matters. So for me, my energy, even if I'm arguing for a United thing, Terry, I keep the energy consistent. It's the truth.
No, I agree. Someone here says, Terry, you watched Gerrard, you know how good he was. And you've never found a single video of me saying he was a bad player, rubbish player, overrated player, crap player, flop. There's not a video out there or a tweet from me, maybe a sarcastic comment on the video, but you'll never see me say that. So when you say I know how good he was, I do know how good he was. But this is what you're doing in your brain, Maradon, is you're saying Terry doesn't think he's the best, therefore Terry thinks he's shit. That isn't what I've said. Your brain is doing crazy gymnastics and is having a little bit of a woo, 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 woo moment. It's going, woo. Your brain's going, woo, woo, woo. It can't understand because I don't think he's as good as you think he is. I just think there's 4 or 5 players that have been better than him in the Premier League, but I still think he is fantastic. That's not slagging someone off in any capacity at all. Speaking of slagging people off, I wanted to ask you, the news has come out that Mauricio Pochettino is pretty much done and dusted.
I love that segue. Man said, speaking of slagging people off.
Oh, yeah, and it looks as though, you know, Mauricio Pochettino is going to be in. He's going to be announced as the new manager of Chelsea. There's talk about him. It's been slightly delayed because he wants confirmation. This isn't a personal term, but he just wants confirmation of a director of football coming in, Paul Mitchell, before he arrives. I'm not too sure how much weight to put into that story, to be honest. I was told by a few journalists yesterday that everything is done. It's just a formality now, and it will be announced within the next 48 hours, they hope, but very, very soon, if not. With some time to reflect over the last week of this deal happening, do you feel like this is going to work for Chelsea? Do you feel as though this is going to be a good move for them? Or is there still that feeling of, is he the guy?
On the top six show, I got him to have hope a little bit because he triggered me with the nostalgic stuff. But like, I actually meant everything I said as well. I'm not gonna wear my sunglasses this time, but I stick by what I said. For me, Pochettino, like, man, he has to hardwire a whole fan base to think differently. That's even a bigger challenge than anything he has to do on the football pitch. On the football pitch, okay, he can improve players, he can make players play better football, blah, blah. We already know that. But like, my thing is, you look at it from the perspective of, can Mauricio Pochettino make Chelsea impatient, used to winning all the time, spoilt fan base, just turn 180 degrees and have to be patient? Because the truth is, if you're a Chelsea fan right now, you can kiss winning stuff goodbye for a period of 2-3 years minimum if you get Pochettino, because it ain't going to be about the winning. It's going to be all about development and the step-by-step process and making you play offensive football and improving you, blah, blah, blah. Like, these are the things that Pochettino has to face. And I know people who go to Stamford Bridge week in, week out, the proper Chelsea, as they call them, who say that they're never going to accept Pochettino because he's former Spurs. So he's got that challenge as well. So will it be as toxic as a Rafa Benitez? I don't think so. I don't think it'll be that toxic as to where Chelsea fans just never going to accept him because he's Rafa Benitez and we fought him for the last 5-6 years and we had all those battles. No, I don't think it's going to be that bad. But from Pochettino's perspective, he has a massive mountain to climb, because he's got to convince the fan base. He's got to change the way the fan base think. He's got to change this team. I mean, just last week we were saying, if Bournemouth beat Chelsea, they're going to end up 14th, 15th. Now, banter aside and jokes aside, that really is the worst pound-for-pound season ever. We've seen teams get relegated. We've seen teams do this. We've seen teams underperform. But when you spend that much money, and just 2 years before that, you win the Champions League, and just like a year and a half before that, you were competing for the Premier League, and people were talking about, managers' legacies, and we can win the Prem, and this and that. Suddenly now, you're in 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th. That's just a crazy fall off. For me, Pochettino has a massive challenge on his head. And for me, it goes back to what Igal said when all the Chelsea fans cooked him. It's Todd Bowley. Todd Bowley this summer has got to take the patient approach, because it is no longer about just piling players, on top of each other and going like, you can go ahead and win. Football was never like this. Pep Guardiola, who's Pep Guardiola, and he spends a whole lot of money, didn't do a rebuild in 6 months. Like, it took him time as well to implement and all that stuff. And for me, the problem is Chelsea are just trying to skip the process. If you get what I'm saying, like, they're just trying to skip the process of slowly becoming something, and they want to become something directly, which won't work. So Pochettino has a mountain to climb, and I don't think it'll work. And I think within 6 months, 7 months, you'll easily see Poch out. You just be trending on Twitter. I really believe it. And I believe it because of the fan base. Because the fan base, listen, the fan base have been hardwired. We have a period of 3 years for every manager. Win Premier League, win this, get sacked, move on, next manager. You're asking that fan base for the last 20 years. That's what they've been used to. 20 years in their life. That's not a short period. 20 years in their life, they've been used to this exact thing. Now you're asking them to just turn around and have patience. Like, this is what I don't get. It's like asking someone who drives a Ferrari to just drive a Honda and go like, oh, here's the Honda. You can get to work anyway. But he's like, no, I'm used to a Ferrari.
Yeah, listen, I think there's a lot of truth in what you said there about the fans. I think that my view on Poch has always been the same. It hasn't changed. I think he's a brilliant coach. He'll make them play better football. He'll improve certain players at the club. Can he get them over the line and win them a Premier League? I don't know. He definitely isn't doing that in his first season. Not with how good Arsenal are now. Liverpool are going to improve next year, in my opinion. I don't think you'll have 2 seasons the same you're going to spend this summer. City are City, they're going nowhere. And I'm pretty confident that Man United are going to improve this summer as well. Newcastle, and we're going to move on to them a little bit later, are going to spend... I don't see Newcastle dropping off and becoming a significantly worse team. So you get into the situation where it becomes. And me and Lee Gunner always have this conversation, and it's become to a point now where I probably won't have it with him anymore because we know our stances. But he sort of looks at it, football generally, as if you don't win the league, it's a failure of a season. And I think for some teams in certain seasons, that's absolutely right. But he has stated that Brighton not winning the league this year is failure. Bournemouth not winning the league this year is failure. And he never really takes into consignment. A lot of Chelsea fans think like this. You're not putting into context what building a team up to be able to win looks like. And he gave an example yesterday of I asked him this question. No one's given me an example or DM'd me one of name me a team, whether they're a giant club or not. But we take a big club because Chelsea are a big club now, whether people like it or not, that have fallen off for a certain period of time, who have been able to turn it round inside a year. Now, remember, Chelsea haven't challenged for a Premier League title in 6 going on 7 years, the best part of a decade. It's got to be about 2017 they won it, so it's 6 years. Next year will be 7.
Years, yeah. Conte was the last one.
Yeah, so you throw into context all the other teams in the Prem that are better than them currently. To go from where they are now, after 6 years of not challenging at all for Premier League titles, yes, they won a Champions League, but many Chelsea fans state that kind of papered over cracks more so than pushing them onto another level. To go from where they are to straight away winning a Premier League is nigh on impossible, not just for Chelsea to do. But if you look through the history of sport, it may have happened once or twice in English football in the last 130 years. So it's an anomaly. It's rocking horse shit you're looking for, as opposed to the reality of the situation. So patience must come in. Lee gave the example yesterday of Inter Milan. Well, they won a treble. Yeah, that was after 3 or 4 years of consecutively winning the league. And yes, their last league before 2005 or 2006 was in like 1989. But they didn't go from being crap to winning the league. They finished 3rd the year before they won it. There is a step change to improving. Even with what Pep's doing now at City, if Pep came in the day they got taken over by the Sheikh, I don't believe he does a 100-point season year 2. Because it takes time to build a club up, confidence, players, squad, structure, winning mentalities. And it doesn't matter that Man United or Chelsea or whoever it may be used to be brilliant. And I keep hearing this, but you're Man United, but you're Chelsea, your standards have got to be high. Of course they do. But there has to be a step change. When I use Tyson Fury as an example again, this guy put loads of weight on when he was out of boxing for about 3 years. He couldn't go from being this guy that was that overweight, that unhealthy, to fighting one of the best fighters in the world in his first fight. It took him 2 or 3 fights to be ready to do that. And it takes 2 or 3 seasons sometimes for a team to be ready to win a league title. Now, you can win FA Cups and League Cups in that time. Chelsea might be able to do that next year. And that might buy the manager some time. But they have to realize their club broke and fell apart. And what they were doesn't exist anymore. And it needs to be rebuilt. And the only way you're going to do that is with patience. Same high standards, but understanding that you're not going to go from looking like James Corden to having a body like Brad Pitt in a couple of months of going to the gym. People do that. Actually. They go to the gym, they eat good for a week, they go gym every day, they look in the mirror and go, I don't look any different, and they stop. That is not how it works. Consistency and time, and you'll get back there. But you do have to maintain the standards. I get in 7 months, if you're still sitting 10th with Poch and the football's as bad, you're not scoring goals, that's a different scenario. But I just think they've got to get out their heads that they're going to be in a title race next year, or they've got a massive chance of making it into the top 4. There's an outside chance of top 4 before we've even seen a ball kicked, but 0 chance almost of winning the Premier League. And they have to learn to get that in their heads. Otherwise, I think you're right, mate. It will just fall apart very quickly.
And you can look at your own club as an example, because you always ask people like, where did you have Man United before the season? If we were to go by that logic, just by default, Man United should be Premier League winners then, just because it's the standard and you've won 13 Premier Leagues and stuff like that. Like, this is the thing. You have to build, you need to understand, look, as great as Pep Guardiola is, even him, it took him a year to build stuff. Like the sporting director, the communication with him, the playing out the back and all that stuff. And even then he was slowly correcting stuff, like Bravo for Ederson, then like the fullbacks, and he changed them up, before he got to those levels. And that's Pep Guardiola we're talking about. That's like him as a manager. So for me, like, the step-by-step thing is a reality. It's no longer, it really is a reality in football nowadays. And it's not just nowadays, to be fair, even like from before, teams like slowly get to those levels. And when you look at this whole Chelsea situation right now, as things stand, if they start playing offensive football next season, start scoring a whole lot of goals, you see maybe players, just like in your instance, a Wan-Bissaka, maybe like a Gallagher, not people don't like, people want him sold, suddenly maybe start playing good football, suddenly start turning up, you're like, okay, he's improving players, so he's doing the individual stuff at a good level. I agree with you, though, when it comes to Carabao Cup and FA Cup, they can definitely win that, but I don't think they can, like, top four as well. Like, the problem is you're asking a team to go from 10th, 11th, 12th to 4th. So, like, this is a massive step. And not only are you asking that, you're also asking for the team in 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th and all of them to just have a massive drop off again. So now we look at next season realistically, from the realistic perspective. I agree completely with Terry. I've seen Chelsea fans say it on social media, like, oh my God, we're going to get top 4. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I'm like, no, you're not. You have to really just get out of the situation that you're currently in a step-by-step process. Because even you look at, for example, the centre back that they've all lauded over the last 2-3 years, Thiago Silva. I swear he's going to be 39 as well next season, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, he's just, like, it's just all of these things matter. Reece James, extremely injury prone. This is a problem that even Chelsea fans, I hear, forget me, Chelsea fans are speaking on, maybe on spaces on their platforms, going like, yes, we love Reece, but Reece is also getting injured a lot for our liking. So N'Golo Kante, the same. There is talks about an N'Golo Kante contract extension. N'Golo Kante, when he's on the pitch, is one of the best midfielders on the planet, not just in the Premier League. But does he get on the pitch long enough? This is the thing. Bro, availability is an ability. I don't give a shit what anyone says. Availability counts in football. I would much rather have a player that gives me a 7 out of 10 for 38 games than a player who gives me a 9 out of 10 for 15, 20 games. Like, availability counts. Availability is a thing. It matters. It has weight to it. So all of these things, like, you're looking at your best players maybe being injury prone or older, and then you're looking at a front line that can't hit a barn door, can't score goals. Terry always refers to them as all this technical ability with just no finishing whatsoever, no end product whatsoever. And every time you watch Chelsea, it's almost like they keep getting into dangerous position, then do nothing with it. It's kind of like they repeat every game. So Pochettino, for me, and I'll say this right now, has the hardest job of any manager next season, because he's fighting the fan base and the players that are adapting. It's just a whole lot of things that Pochettino has to get right. It really is an uphill battle for him. And I think this could easily, don't be so shocked whatsoever if you guys are tuning into this terrace next season, inshallah, and you're on a Chelsea post-match reaction after 6-7 games and you see a guy go like Poch out. Bro, you need to understand, they've been hardwired this way. This is them. And how are you going to get them to change? How are you going to get them to change? This is the thing.
It's such an interesting one. It really is. I'm sorry. Nick here says, if Poch is coming, then it's a fair request to get a proper director of football. He'll make them better than now for sure. Bowley needs to step back from trying to over control. Yeah, listen, I agree, and that's coming from an Arsenal fan, Nick. And they are looking to do that. And this is the thing, though. If they get this right, Chelsea, and I say Chelsea, and I include fans in that as a whole, if they get this right, I worry about them in the medium to long term now. I thought they'd get it right a bit quicker. If they build a sustainable model and spend like they're spending, that can be a problem. If they run themselves right, they listen to the football people, they can rectify this. They've just got to be patient in terms of turning around this oil tanker, and they could be good. But you're right. It could be.
Do you think they will be patient, Terry?
No,
from all your interaction with Chelsea fans,
I don't think they will at all. Fans often don't. Fans are weird in England. I've just seen a report that the PSG ultras have announced they will no longer attend matches at the Parc des Princes, or away from home until further notice. Like, football fans here are weird. We moan about things and we create problems, but we never really do anything about stuff. We're very strange like that. We have almost no patience. And someone in the comments said that patience is a myth. No, it isn't. If there's no progression, then I get it. If you're 6 games in and you've lost 6 matches and scored 1 goal, I understand it. But you might be 6 games in of 1-3, drawn 2, lost 1, looking okay, looking better than last year, but not right. And some Chelsea fans will say, well, we're not competing with City, so he's got to go. Some people have a really weird kind of thought process. And the reason I bring up the...
You know, Terry, just to give them an example, Terry's not saying if Pochettino does the Frank de Boer, be patient. The Frank de Boer, which is 7 games with Crystal Palace, no wins, 0 goals. Like, no one's saying that. And I'm not saying that either. All I'm saying is recognize where you are. If in the first 10 games, you've got 5 wins, 2 draws, 3 losses, but you're playing much better football, you see signs of development, you can't turn on the guy because you're not in a top 4 race or you're not in a title race. You need to understand there is a starting point. Your starting point is 10th with a squad that has no belief whatsoever. A lot of the players don't even want to be at the club. So, like, where do we go from here? This is the thing. This is why the step-by-step thing comes in.
I totally agree. And it's the reason I bring up the PSG thing. It's a different scenario. This is fans making a stance against their owners to make change. But it's about doing something that's actually going to help your club because it's tangible. And patience here for Chelsea fans in the right circumstance is tangible. But what you get in these scenarios is, well, I've got to be patient if we lose our first 10 games. No, nobody stated that. You know, I'm not implying that, so there's no point saying it. Equally, well, you're saying I've got to not go to games and lose my season ticket. Yeah, I am actually, if it means you get the change at your club you want, because surely you going to games is less important than Man United being run well. And that's the problem with football fans. We're either very, very selfish, or we take the easy way out all the time. And it'll be the easy way. It's sometimes harder to support a manager through tough times than it is to slag them off. It's a lot harder to support them. And people always want to take the easy way out, I feel. This comment here says, on the topic of midfield, farewell to Busquets, GOAT CDM. Yeah, absolutely. Hassam Hamza going wild in your space.
Big up Hamza, man.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
I saw him go wild on the match reaction as well, man.
He was making me laugh last night. He's so funny. He was so funny. Another example I give is that the Pittsburgh Steelers won 6 Super Bowls, who are tied with the New England Patriots for the most Super Bowls. They haven't won one since 2009. Should be demanding more Super Bowls because of their history. I don't know enough about American sport, but what I will say is the difference in your sport is that don't the worst performing teams get the advantage when it comes to draft picks, and so there's almost this element of, gun, you can be run well, you can do good trades and pick well and make those picks last, but I suppose if you went for a 10-year period of being really successful in the NFL, would that not mean that in the following decade you could be hindered because you didn't get a chance of picking the best coming through?
100%.
In football in Europe, if you're doing well and you're earning great money and you've got a brilliant team, there theoretically should be no excuse to fall off.
You're not hindered at all. You're actually supported.
Yeah, you should keep adding to it. So yeah, from my point of view, I think it's a little different in America compared to sports here. There just isn't an excuse for me.
And if I give you the American example, for example, if you go to the NBA, the Los Angeles Lakers and the Boston Celtics both are the most successful franchises overall. So maybe, okay, their fan base might have that and the winning culture and all of that stuff. But when you look over the last, since the turn of the century, you've got the Spurs with more titles, you've got the Warriors with more titles, because American sports have a different element to them, because there's also playoffs, there's trades, there's drafts. And when you look at teams in the NBA or in the NFL who have consistently won, is they strengthen when they're at the top. So we have the infamous when the Warriors signed KD. If I were to, kind of give that in the football sense, it would be like City not winning the league in 1920 and then signing Mo Salah from Liverpool, playing him alongside KDB to win again the league. So like these are things that you can do in American sports that you can't in these sports. And listen, I am not against standards, because last season I came up here on the terrace and I said last season was a failure. And my own fan base got upset at me, even though we won the Carabao and the FA Cup. But this is where context comes in. I don't have Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, Firmino, Fabinho, Thiago, Van Dijk, Trent, Robertson, Alisson to win an FA Cup and a Carabao Cup. But if you're Tottenham Hotspur and I give you an FA Cup and a Carabao Cup, that is a successful as hell season. Arsenal this season, for example, I understand people might not like this. Lee Gunnar himself ain't going to like this. But I think Arsenal have had a successful season because they've challenged. They didn't win anything. They didn't win a single trophy, and that's where they should be disappointed because they should have won the Europa League. I understand if that's your argument, they should have won Europa League 100%, no problem with that whatsoever. But if you tell me in the league they haven't been a success just because they didn't lift it, that would be false equivalences because just last season they bottled top 4. Like we're talking about a team who couldn't get top 4 over the line, who finished 5th. Now they just went head to head with Manchester City. So now they're a step away, and this is where me and Terry and other people who keep their energy consistent will crash it on Arsenal even harder next season. When you get to this stage now, you've got to make the right decisions. If they make the right decisions this summer and they go on to win the league next season, then they've completely done the step-by-step thing correctly. So step-by-step does not mean sit on your ass and just be a failure. No, you can become...
And I agree with the progression element. And again, this season, if next season Arsenal finish 6th, then this year isn't successful.
100%.
The problem is with football fans, sometimes we judge everything we shoebox everything and we silo it off and we judge everything in an isolated season when actually seasons overlap. The progression you make this year, if you are moving in the right direction, will pay dividends for you the following campaign, you know? And I think that's why when people say to me, oh, you know, you had a chance of being in a title race this year and you threw it away. I never really thought we did, but if we make this top 4, you know, maybe win the FA Cup. Yes, it isn't as good as City winning the league or Arsenal coming second to win in the title race in some people's view, but I am happy because I think if we improve again by the same degree next year, that puts us in and around the title race. And some people just don't look at... I don't even think people stop looking at football that way. I think people pretend to not look at it that way so they can shit on people. That is my honest thought with the way it comes now. Another super chat here says, Terry, quantify patience at Chelsea. I've already explained what it looks like. And I can't give you an exact example because context is always going to be key. But for instance, give your manager time to get his feet under the table, his style of play to get in place, but maintain standards. Chelsea, with the squad they'll have starting next summer, should still be winning 60+% of their games. You may not have it stylistically how you want it. You may not be as good as the top 2, top 3, top 4, top 5 teams at that point, but give them a little bit of time. You know, the patience is just because you're not the best day 1, day 2, game week 3 means you throw your toys out your pram, is essentially what I'm saying.
If you want me to quantify it, I think Chelsea finishing 5th or 6th, whilst playing amazing football, getting a lot better, you see individual improvement, that's 100% improvement. No cap, honestly.
KDB will go down as our greatest ever player, is what Daniel says as a City
It's not hard, to be fair, Daniel. It's not hard to be your greatest ever player. Like, let's not sit up here and now start. Don't use that argument. Because if Marcus Rashford wants to become the greatest ever United player, he's got to fight Beckham, he's got to fight Rooney, he's got to fight George Best, he's got to fight some of the greatest of all time. If Salah wants to become the greatest ever Liverpool player, he's got to fight Gerrard, Kenny Dalglish, Ian Rush. So it's not that difficult to be your greatest ever player.
I think we've had 4 Ballon d'Or winners in our past, or what the equivalence was in the 60s. So it would be very, very hard.
What are we doing here, man?
Aya here says KDB is far better than Steven Gerrard. The issue is nostalgia. Social media has lessened the achievements of modern players to a point where we don't bat an eyelid at the crazy stats and performances they give.
Can I address this, please?
Yeah, it's all for you.
Thank you for the super chat. If you remember in the top 6 show where you said we need more of Hussam on the terrace, thank you, by the way. I actually fought Have Hope on nostalgia. I'm not a nostalgia merchant. Have Hope made the argument that Haaland wouldn't score against Maldini, and I'm like, yes, he would. Like, yes, he would. Good players would be good players in most of the eras. But here's the thing, I know. When you say nostalgia, I've actually given my reasons and I've applied the context and I've given a realistic reason. If you were to tell me, you know, any other position, I'm not arguing Trent's the best right back of Premier League history. I'm not arguing Alisson's the best keeper. I'm not arguing Van Dijk's the best centre back. I will never make those arguments. But the one player that I put on that pedestal, you can't come fight me over when I've given realistic reasons, because it's not just nostalgia. My thing is, if I take Steven Gerrard and I put him in this Manchester City team, do they still win the Premier Leagues? My answer is yes. Do they probably add on a Champions League or 2 because Gerrard was so good at moments that Terry described? I think they easily could have had moments like that. Maybe when you played Chelsea in the Champions League final, maybe Gerrard has a screamer from 40 yards. Maybe Gerrard, does a madness like what he did against AC Milan, and suddenly it's 1-1. Maybe you go to penalties, maybe you win. So, like, these are the things that matter for me. I've always contextualized, and I've defended Man United, and I've defended Arsenal. I've defended everyone using context, because context matters. Technically, he's brilliant. I think he's a fantastic box-to-box midfielder. He ain't number one yet, though. So you've got to just be easy on that one right there.
There we go. Zach here says, me personally, I thought Camavinga was unreal for Real Madrid. I don't hear enough praise for him. I thought he was doing really well. A couple of poor passes in the build-up to that goal. But overall, yeah, very, very good game from him. Winter Surfer here. Hope you're doing well, brother. He says, I am patient for the head shaving. Hold that Hussam. Yes.
Hey, Surfer, apparently when Bellingham last celebrated his last goal, he said, I'm staying, F the noise. So if he stays, technically, I don't have to shave, technically, because he didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. Manny here says, unlike Lee, I don't want Arteta sacked. Successful season is a bit of a stretch, but where Arsenal came from when Arteta started, it makes sense. And this is the thing. Jess said something the other day, and she's like, I love being in a title race. But what she said was really true. She went, but if we would have just finished a comfortable second and had never been in a title race, all we'd be getting right now is praise. And there is truth in that. And I feel that, listen, I would probably be bantering Arsenal more if it wasn't City on the road to doing a treble. Does that make sense? If they were already out of the Champions League and FA Cup, I'd have probably bantered it a bit more, because I've kind of got myself to a point now. Three-peat's bad, but the treble is scaring me more. It's one of the reasons why I was so annoyed that Arsenal fell off, and it was purely for selfish reasons. But yeah, I agree with you, Manny.
And Manny, if I ask you a question,
go on.
Since you're an Arsenal fan, Manny, and all the Arsenal fans in the comment section chip in August, a ball was kicked, if I said Arsenal were going to finish second and fight Man City for the league and go into the last 2 game weeks with a chance of winning the Premier League title, every single one of you would have done 2 things: either bite my hand off and take that deal, or laughed in my face because you thought it was impossible. Guys, I understand, as a supporter of Arsenal Football Club, you want success and you should have success, and you're the 3rd biggest club in the Premier League and all. I completely get where you're coming from. But the matter of the fact is, 20 years, you've not won a Premier League. I compare yourself to myself. I'm being real. When Klopp first come in, I counted us being in the Champions League for 2 years straight, just that as some sort of success, because you've got to be consistent at the top level. Now, this is where, once again, next season, we'll have the final answer on this Arteta exam. Because as Terry said, if suddenly Arsenal are 6th, then this season means absolutely nothing. This season is a 13-14 Liverpool. It's a Chelsea season. It's where they challenge and they just fell off the year after. Like, it means nothing. But if you continue and you challenge again and you get to the Champions League semis, you do stuff like that, then it's definitely a successful season for me. 100%.
I hear you. Someone here says, name me, off subject, David Beckham's greatest ever moments without it being a free kick. The 50-yard lob against Wimbledon, his performance in the opening day of the season in the treble-winning season against Leicester, his performance and goal on the final day of the treble-winning season against Tottenham where he scored. I've just named you 3. He's man of the match second half display against Tottenham away when we were 3-0 down and won 5-3.
But why can't it be a free kick, though?
Yeah, I'm just saying, because I don't know. I mean, there's free kicks in there. The fact that, his whole 1998-99 season where he came 3rd in the Ballon d'Or, maybe second or third, second in the Ballon d'Or that year. So yeah, weird one there about Beckham, but I just thought I'd answer it because.
But free kick is an ability, though, and if he can play very good in midfield and have a free kick, like you say, without a free kick, you're very cheeky. Because the thing is, that England, Greece, free kick gets played till today. Like, come on, man.
I mean, the amount he got, the amount he scored for Man United was absolutely ridiculous. Another great performance by him away against Chelsea in the FA Cup, 5-3 win to Manchester United. He scored a brace that day. So yeah, and that was in 1998. You're testing my knowledge a little bit here, and my memory is an old but yeah, loads of great moments from David Beckham.
And let me just say one thing. Sorry, Tari. David Beckham is an English player who played outside England well, which is rare. When you go to Real Madrid, he's respected there. He's not just a name on the board.
At Madrid, he was only there for a short time at PSG. AC Milan was still a good team when he went there, and they wanted him to
Mm-hmm.
stay. Like Beckham was a
Mm-hmm.
serious football player. It's unbelievable how good he was. Speaking of Man United, though, do you think Man United are going to bottle the top 4? And that's the one for the viewers as well. Are Man United going to bottle this top 4? Let us know now in the comments section. Also, hit the like button for us as well. What are you saying, Don? What are you saying, Don?
Terry.
We bottling it.
Terry. Since we last spoke on this topic, you went and you lost 2 games in a row. West Ham, and you lost to what's their name? Who was the team you lost to for West Ham? Brighton. Yeah. Man, Terry. You know, sometimes the stars align. Sometimes like things just happen. I'm not willing to jump the gun yet. I'm not going to sit up here and say anything. For me, the key in all of this is Wolves and Bournemouth. That's the key. This is the key in this entire thing for Manchester United. They play Wolves, 3 p.m. kickoff this Saturday. If Wolverhampton Wanderers get a draw or Man United lose that game against the Wolves team that even Terry will tell you this and be honest, is on the beach now. They've secured safety. They've got absolutely nothing to fight for. If they somehow get a draw at Old Trafford or a win at Old Trafford, then I'm going to sit up here and say like, okay, I think we're going to get it. But as things stand, let us also be real and cut the crap here. We're 1 point behind, but you have a game in hand. So like this easily could be 4 points. So we do need you to mess up 2 games. Now, even if you maybe get to draw against Chelsea, stuff like that, okay, maybe it could happen. But when it comes to top 4 race, from my personal perspective, I'm looking more at Newcastle a bit because I think they have tougher fixtures. But from Man United's perspective, it could easily go real bad for them. And this is where, for me, I keep the energy consistent for the whole successful season stuff. Man United won the Carabao Cup, so they won something. But if Man United somehow finish outside the top 4, it is a travesty. Like there is no other, like there is no if, buts, or maybes, but that is just unbelievably a travesty because they've been in the top 4 for a long time. There is no real competition either for the top 4. I mean, Tottenham Hotspur sacked their manager, etc., etc., etc. With all due respect, Brighton, Brentford, these guys, Fulham ain't really competition. Liverpool, there's a statistical point in this season in which they were a worse side than the Hodgson side. So this isn't really the Liverpool that we all know, like, oh my God, Liverpool. No. This is just like a shit Liverpool. So like competition matters as well. So if they somehow fumble this top 4, I can't lie to you. It is, I know this unpopular opinion, but I think it'll be a worse bottle job than Arsenal, given the competition.
I've seen a lot of people say that. And for me, I'm not even... It's going to feel worse to me. Whether it is or isn't is actually irrelevant to me. It's going to feel worse to me. I'm a Man United fan. So to every Man United fan on the planet, I don't care how bad Arsenal's is. That doesn't hurt me personally. City doing a treble does, but it's nothing really to do with Arsenal bottling it. That's to do with how good City are and how much my club's fallen off. I'll be gutted if we do. And our home form has been imperious since the opening day of the season against Brighton. We've had a couple of draws, but we've been very, very good. And even against Villa recently, I was more worried about that game than I was going away to West Ham. And we should have scored more goals, but we were a very dominant team. I think if we beat Wolves and kind of blow the cobwebs away of the last couple of games, I think we'll be okay. I think, we can beat Chelsea at home, we can beat Fulham at home, but we need to beat Wolves because if we drop points, although we've still got a game in hand, you guys can overtake us. We draw and you win. We suddenly drop to 5th. Then we've got to go away from home again where our form's been bad. And it doesn't become about maths. It becomes about probability and mentality. And I'm worried about this team right now because we've got to the end of the season and some of the same usual suspects, they've started to flag mentally. And I look at the manager and he's made some mistakes.
Name them, Terry. Name the suspects. I want to know who.
So, see, for me, when I look at this team, I look at it very much along the lines of David De Gea is a standout example to me. He is absolutely, when we needed him, our most experienced player, he has crumbled as an example. We saw again the other day. Well, it's the first time we've seen him in a Man United team. So Eriksen, since his return, he isn't dominating the midfield like he was. He looks nervous out there. He looks tired out there as an example.
That's the Tottenham team right there.
Yeah, we saw Anthony Martial come on, and he's played against some teams recently that even at this point, he should be able to, grab by the scruff of the neck and give it a good go. And he hasn't been able to do it. Jadon Sancho, again, he has a good sort of first half against Tottenham and then fades away. In the last couple of games, I've not been happy with Rashford or Bruno either. However, I'm less annoyed with them because they've had very good seasons. Casemiro has fallen off in the last few games, but he's had a brilliant season overall. So I'm annoyed at them. But for me, it's the individuals that have had very average seasons who have then dropped off when we needed them to maintain. And there's lots of players. I'm annoyed with all the players.
Lindelof as well, to be fair.
Lindelof, again, it was so frustrating because he was so good in a couple of games and then bang, can't maintain the consistency. So there's so many things here where a lot of people go, how does the manager fix the mentality? Transfer market, he sells them and buys more people. I had someone DM me going, Terry, it's such basic analysis from you. I'm like, it's basic because it's the only truth. I don't want the manager to invest in hire Jordan Peterson to come in and make them mentally stronger. Just go and buy better footballers with better mentalities. Keep it simple. Just go and do that.
Let me ask you a question, Terry. I know you're supposed to ask me a question, but I'm going to ask you questions.
Go on.
Here's the thing. I know you've seen this on social media, and you've seen this from Man United fans. What do you think of the whole Ten Hag out conversations? And I would sell Rashford conversation as another one.
So the Ten Hag out conversations remind me very much what we spoke about 20 minutes ago around Poch. Patience is key. There's a lot of Man United fans. Some of them are strange, very strange people. When you actually deep their thoughts on Man United as the club, they don't like the local fan base and local area that built the club. I see these same people slag off Fergie. They hate the class of 92. They hate the history of the club. They don't like the DNA of the club. They don't like the traditional standings of the club. They barely like any of the players now. They hate the Glazers, which we all do, by the way. And I sit there sometimes and think, why did you ever become a Man United fan when nearly every element of the football club you hate? Like, legitimately, it makes no sense to me. So when I look at the people that are Ten Hag out, and then I do click on their profiles, I read what they say, I look at what they do, and I think to myself, yeah, see, you're the same individuals that follow people like that love United, hate Glazer Mike, who, by the way, when Lisandro Martinez broke his foot, tweeted and said, this is karma for you celebrating an equalizer against Arsenal, saying that we shouldn't celebrate equalizers at Man United. That's the type of mindset. So I find it very hard to actually affirm these people as Manchester United fans at their core. They, for me, are kind of social media glory hunter fans that probably at some point attached themselves to Man United when they thought they were going to win something, but actually get a lot of joy out of just slagging the club off all the time. Because the manager has made mistakes this year. The manager has had some embarrassing moments, but overall we've improved, and I believe we're moving in the right direction. We haven't had a catastrophic year. We have won a trophy, but I don't know if some of these fans will ever be happy. And I'm saying, I think if we won the league next year, but did it on 85 points, they'd moan that it wasn't high 90s. That's what I think of them. And I think it's far too premature to say Ten Hag out. And this is what I said to Lee just yesterday. The criticism of some of his starting lineups and subs recently, the criticism of the team as a whole falling apart in the last few games, and some of our embarrassing away results, they are all fair game, fair criticism, and he needs to be held accountable. How you hold him accountable, though, isn't by sacking him. It's giving him the chance to improve on that next season. And for me, that's where I stand with it. On Rashford,
and here's the thing.
Here's
the thing. Against West Ham, I felt like, I still think in your fan base, you really do have a big problem of like certain player FCs, or like just people who just have a massive dislike for a certain player and they have a real like for other players. The infamous Martial Rashford thing. Here's the thing now. You can blame Ten Hag for two things for me. There's only two things you can blame Ten Hag for in that West Ham game. Number one is taking off Anthony, because I thought he was your most dangerous forward. I think that's a genuine constructive criticism. The second thing is starting Martial over Weghorst. Now, someone will say, okay, you've been saying Martial isn't good enough all year long, blah, blah. True, but Martial is, of course, better than Weghorst. So, if he was fit and available, should have started him anyway. Some people, I think those two are constructive criticisms. But when you look at that game, David De Gea put the ball in his own net. There's nothing that Ten Hag can account for that happening. It's not like he should have went in pre-game and anticipated that was going to happen and started Jack Butland, for example. Like, we also have to be real. When you look at Martial that Terry mentioned, he came on, should have scored the header immediately. Marcus Rashford, horrible performance. Malacia, horrible performance. I don't think Bruno was that bad personally. I was actually defending him a little bit against some Man United fans because I just feel like Bruno has become a little bit of a scapegoat a lot of the times, and I can't stand Bruno. It's been well documented how much I hate that guy. But he did create your most dangerous chance. Martial scored that header, or at least put it on target. And for me, Eriksen as well, as you mentioned, was bad. I thought Malacia was bad. Wan-Bissaka had an actual good game, who's once again one of the good people who gets criticized a lot. I thought he had a good game. But for me, like, I understand criticism of Ten Hag if he doesn't finish top 4. It is just criticism. It's constructive, and there's an actual point to it. But if you say Ten Hag out, like, do you not see a future at all with this manager? And if you are Ten Hag out, then the infamous question will be, who do you want 10? Because if you want Ten Hag out, and then you bring me a Pochettino as your example of a solution, then you truly just have lost it, because it's just two sides of the same coin, for example. Like,
do you know where you're right? Sorry to interject. Where you're right on the player stuff is, I think this is the way human beings are built now, but it's so present in football. It's crazy. People are very they're driven by ideology, and it's a concept of what a real footballer looks like, or how I want to see football being played, or what I consider to be a good footballer. And that goes above and beyond their support nowadays of their team and their club. In terms of Man United have never played football how Ajax and Barcelona play football in our history. We've played brilliant football, but we never played it like that. So that's why I hate the fact we don't play like that. But we've never played like that. So why did you support Manchester United? Because generally speaking, you support a club for one or two reasons normally. Your father or mother and family introduce you to that club, or you watch them play and fall in love with them. So I don't understand what these people fell in love with. Now, a lot of them, maybe it was their parents, maybe they can educate me, but for a lot of them, it's like, I fell in love with the way we play. Then why are you on your knees for football that we've never played then? Why are you so angry?
4-4-2.
Yeah, well, it's not the formation, but Fergie played 4-3-3 quite a lot as well in his latter years. But for me, I don't really care how we play per se. I just want to win football matches to a large degree. I don't want to play horrible football, but I think ideology drives people, and then you get into the player FC stuff. And Rashford's, since he got the injury, he's gone off again. I think in the last couple of months, 2 or 3 goals, 2 or 3 assists. Not terrible, but not great. My feeling as a Man United fan is, well, who's stepping up when he ain't there? Rather than focusing on, Rashford's let us down again, it's like, well, what about the players that weren't scoring when he was, that are still not scoring and assisting? That's my bigger focus. A lot of people I see say Sancho's better, Martial's better. If they're better and they don't deliver as regularly as him, that's a bigger problem. I used to get into a lot of arguments with people. Well, you're much harsher on Pogba than you are McTominay, because Pogba's 10 times the player. So I expect more from him. Teachers at school are much harder on the bright kids than they are the ones who are a little slower. And that's not a dig. It's the reality, because if someone does struggle and have learning difficulties, I had dyslexia. So my English teacher was a little bit more, so when I used to do tests, not even my English teacher, when I used to do tests in other subjects, I was allowed spelling mistakes. I had a leniency against me. People that didn't have dyslexia didn't have that same leniency. And I look at football in the same way. If you're Sancho's ability and Rashford, who's got less ability, in my opinion, is outperforming you 10-1, I've got a big issue with you, because you should be delivering more than Rashford. So that's what I don't get. What you often get in this is, they're annoyed that Rashford's done well and their star boy, their favorite player, hasn't. So when Rashford hits a bad patch, it's like, right, now's the time to jump on Rashford. And what we end up doing as a fan base is we end up completely and utterly moving away from talking about the team, and we focus on biases. But there's a comment here I want to go to. It says, Terry, you're a hypocrite. You criticize Jose over and over again for his style of play. Go back and watch the videos. I always said to you back then, I'll take substance over style every day of the week. But if you're not winning with the style of football, what's the point? So my reasons for wanting Jose out were not really driven around his style of football. It was for losing the dressing room and the fact that the ownership weren't backing him and we were crumbling. So zero hypocritical comments from me. His style of play wasn't a real big concern to me at all. It was his behavior and the breakdown in the dressing room that he actually moved on from. Did I want better football than Jose? Yes. But was it a driving factor as to why I wanted him out? Absolutely not. And I sat on streams. I even did a stream with Flex at the time where I turned around and said, Mate, listen, I'll take Jose's football every day of the week if we're winning the most amount of trophies. I don't care. So, that's completely and utterly false, my friend. I never
The
said
style
that.
of football only works against you if you're not
Yeah. All right,
winning. Like if Antonio Conte, prime example, last season versus this season, let's not act like Antonio Conte was plaguing Barcelona 08-09 football last season. Like, no, he wasn't. But because he got the goal of top four
Yeah.
and was like happy.
No.
Now they drop out of top four. They haven't won a trophy. They're like, oh, the football's shit. Okay, the football's shit, but you knew this when you got Conte.
No,
So for me, if you win trophies, you achieve what you want to achieve. You achieve what you set out to achieve. No one would give a shit about football. But if you don't, it's just the matter of style only works if you're unsuccessful. If you're unsuccessful, you'd rather play nicer football if you'd like.
No, I totally agree with you. We have a question here from I can't pronounce that name to be fair, but thank you for the super chat, Matteo. So I think it says at the end, it says, would you Terry and Hassam take Maddison from Leicester because they're about to get relegated? Would you do that deal?
I would. But depending on price, if Leicester are trying to fleece me and take 70 million from me, I ain't gonna pay that shit. I'm just gonna be real with you. I ain't trying to pay that much money for Maddison. If I'm gonna get a nice little deal because he's got a relegation clause that enables him to get sold for 30 million, something like that. If they get relegated, okay, fair enough. But I take him for depth, definitely. Specifically, if we get Champions League football, then we do need extra depth as well.
Yeah. I sort of look at it along the lines. Look at it along the lines of yes, I would, but for the right price. And I think if he gets relegated, you definitely get him cheaper. While I like your sentiments, guys, if Arteta never threw away the other comps, it would be much easier to swallow than winning the league than not winning the. Yeah, I hear you on that.
Did he throw away Europa though? Did he throw it away? I thought he wanted to win it.
No, he didn't start. He never started in the knockout stages. He's best teams. I don't believe. Like it was always 2 or 3 players rotated. If it was the Champions League, he wouldn't have started the teams he started. Does that make sense? So I think there's an element of that. Nick here says if Arsenal win the league next season without a cup this season, then it's a win, part of the process. If they don't, then this season is better than United's. Pains me, but a true season. But you got to look at it this way. Like, how many Arsenal fans are now sitting there and are like upset over Spurs tipping them to the top 4 last year? Because it's about the growth and the linear process from there and where you get to. So yes, you're like, oh, I wish we were in the top 4 last year, but in terms of you wouldn't want to swap places with them. If your arc is better than theirs in terms of the progression that you've gone in or the direction that you've gone in. Nabil here says, Sam, when are you shaving your head? Where is that Qatar flag in your Twitter tag? And Liverpool ain't making the top 4. Keep dreaming, delusional is what he says.
Nabil, first of all, you can watch me on the terrace. You know where my channel is. I just wanted to keep the same energy if we make top 4. Second of all, listen, when it comes to shaving my head, I've made it clear. If I wake up one day, inshallah, in the summer, and I see the announcement from Fabrizio, here we go, Bellingham in Madrid colors, I immediately shave my head. Don't worry. I'm a man of my word. Terry will tell you this. I don't hide. Bro, after we've been humiliated on the terrace on my own channel, I don't run on spaces. I'm outside all the time. Don't worry about it. I'm going to shave my head, when that announcement is made. And when it comes to the Qatar flag, Nabil, I can't lie to you. It's looking like Man United might not get Qatar themselves. So you never know what happens.
We've got to put a British one in, I think, maybe. But
don't jump the boat on that one, Nabil.
You will sit, yeah. And yeah, Nabil, you're upsetting the football gods a little bit. So like keep it on the low. Speaking of Arsenal that we've mentioned recently, according to a lot of reports in the last few days, it looks like Arsenal are going to go big. Looks like Arsenal are going to go big in the transfer window. Declan Rice is talking 100-odd million, £250,000 per week. The deal for Saka, the reports in the newspapers the last few days, they're looking at £300,000 a week. What's your take? If Arsenal do that and they go out this summer and buy 3 players, ranging from between 65 and 100 million each, and they're looking at giving them all big salaries, 180 is 200,000 plus a week. Is this the right thing for Arsenal to do to kind of move into the big boy league money-wise, salary-wise? Or do you think they're, and I'm playing devil's advocate here because Arsenal fans have accused other clubs of this in the past, or are they running the risk of like ruining the harmony in the dressing room and creating a problem with wages and it damaging the team? Or do you think it's the right thing for them to do, to go out and pay people the going rate to bring the best players in?
I 100% think this is the right move. I'll tell you why. I've numerously stated on many times that I think now this is the Alisson and Van Dijk summer for Arsenal. This is the period where you go get world class players. With all due respect, I'm not impressed if you go sign some youngster with potential and all this crap. You've got to sign proven, you've got to sign winners, you've got to sign players who maybe are like just one step away from making it to the top level. Because my thing is, look, you're this close to winning the league. You're about to compete in the Champions League. You don't have time for all this, oh my God, development, blah, blah, blah. Now you're at a different stage. Now you're at a win now stage. You know, you've got to win one of the two big trophies. You've got to accomplish that. And I think it is heading in the right direction. You need class players, top class players that improve you. You know, if you sign an Osimhen, a Rice, and I don't know, add random third player, maybe like, you know, I don't know, whoever, right? This summer, you sign like someone of that caliber. Now Arsenal are cooking. Now people are taking Arsenal seriously. Now Arsenal will be taken seriously in the Champions League. Arsenal will be taken seriously in the Premier League. Like, I don't think Arsenal don't have time for youngsters, with all due respect. Arsenal are no longer a Jacob Ramsey club. They're no longer like a club that's going to go in Jacob Ramsey, develop him and blah, blah, blah. No, they don't have time for that. They're already in the Champions League. They've just competed with Man City for the title. So they have to sign class players that are going to push the needle. And when it comes to Bukayo Saka's contract, yes, he's maybe asking for too much money. And yes, maybe you're running that risk. However, he is the future now. Like, he is the future of Arsenal Football Club. So if you are going to lock him down to a long-term deal, you know, and Bukayo Saka is the best right winger in the league for the next 10, 15 years, then it's worth every penny. But it really depends on Bukayo Saka. And Terry will tell you this in his experience as a content creator, the same for me. Wages per week are only brought up when the player is not performing. When the player is playing well, not a single you know what is given. I'll use my own right winger as an example, just so you guys don't get that upset, Arsenal fans. I'm going to use my own right winger. Earlier on this season, Mo Salah's 350 grand a week was mentioned to me about 500 times a day. He's our highest earner. He should play like it. He's blah, blah, blah. Last 2-3 months, Salah's turned it up a little bit. Not a single person mentioned 350 grand a week not at a single point in time. No one, not a single person said Mo Salah's worth every penny. 350 grand a week. He's winning us 3 point after 3 point after 3 point. No one said that. Not a single word about it. So if Bukayo Saka is a high earner and he improves like he's done this season, so next season the next step would be, you know, now you need to have a 17 goal, 12 assist season. Consistently perform, be there in the clutch time for Arsenal. You do that, you've consistently improved. So, like, he would be worth every penny if the progress is linear and he improves year in, year out, year in, year out, year in, year out. So, for me, listen, give good players money, let them earn it. But the transfer window is the biggest key to Arsenal's success or downfall. And once again, I'll use my own club as an example. I could give you two examples. When we were close to winning the league in 13-14, we sold Suarez. I know you don't have to sell anyone, but I'm just using it as an example. We sold Suarez, signed 8 players. Of maybe 1 or 2 were good enough from that whole transfer window. In 18, 19, 17, 18, that time frame, when we were this close to winning stuff, we went to got Van Dijk and Alisson. One elevated us to the next level. The other made us fall back behind. You can even use your biggest rival, Spurs. They sold Gareth Bale. They bought 8, 9 players. They were just pushed behind. Guys, I've seen Gary Neville and Roy Keane speak about this on shows like The Overlap and other shows. They always say certain players, when they come in, it's not even about their own performance. It's just that they elevate everyone around them. Everyone just feels better. Maybe Osimhen playing striker will give more space to Bukayo Saka, therefore giving him an extra 5, 6, 7 goals this season. More space for Martinelli. Maybe he's more guarded by these players. So for me, they need class players. Declan Rice is worth every penny. I'm sorry, he is. And this is just the going rate. Like, with all due respect, we were seeing Jude Bellingham, what, 110, 120 million? You know, we were seeing players go like that. So, like, the 100 million is the new 50, 60. It's the truth of football, unfortunately.
Mate, listen, someone said to me earlier, because I said in my video this morning that I think Arsenal fans should be proud that they're looking to spend this level of money. And someone said, oh, you're just trying to defend how much money you pay Sancho. It's a fair argument, but you're wrong. Whenever you spend big and give big salaries, so whether Saka's going to be on 200 with bonuses up to 300 or 300 flat, still it's a massive amount of money, right? But if you don't pay the going rates, if you don't pay the big wages, if you don't buy the star players and give them big salaries, you're never going to win or never going to maintain the level of success that a good team has created. It will disappear. Yes, you may spend it and it doesn't work and you fail and you take the banter, but I would much rather my team spent the money to win and maintain it than have no chance of winning and maintaining it by refusing to spend the money. A lot of football fans now are almost nervous about their club breaking transfer records, buying big players, giving out big contracts in case it doesn't come to success. Because I know this, I'm a United fan. You spent £1 billion and haven't won the league. Yeah, it's embarrassing. But I'd still rather spend the billion and not win the league than not spend £1 billion and not win the league. At least we tried to do it. Now, my club's been run like crap, and we've wasted the money on the wrong people and on the wrong projects. But I'd much rather try than not try. Like it seems crazy to me. Like there's no kind of honor for me in coming fourth, but saying, yeah, but we spend less than everybody else. So in truth, we're the real winners. No, you didn't win anything. You didn't win anything, and your club could have spent more. The only time I care about where my money is spent is when we're giving it in dividends or it's going on interest payments. I want us to spend the money on players, on salaries, on trying to be the best team possible. Now, of course, you want it spent well and you want it spent right. But giving Saka a new deal to make sure that no club in the world can take him away from you should be celebrated by every single gooner. It shouldn't be looked at as, it might break the harmony in the dressing room. No, you say to everyone in the dressing room, play as well as Saka, and you can have that money as well. And some will get to Saka's level, some won't. So that the salaries will be represented in that way. For me, you have to. Arteta needs backing to go to the next level, and it means you've got to spend big. And you're not going to go to the next level signing Lokongas and El Nenis, and even signing more like really young players, unless they're stars now. You need to go out and go, right, 25-year-old, 26-year-old, 28-year-old stars ready to go that want big money that will instantly improve your team. And of course it can go wrong because even Pep signs flops. Klopp has signed flops. Fergie signed flops. But there's like fear amongst fans nowadays of their clubs spending money.
Everyone just wants to be an accountant. Be a football fan, bro. You want Saka to stay at your club, pay his money.
I don't even think it's in accountancy, bro. I don't even think it's that. It's people want an excuse if they fail. Yeah, but our net spend is good. Yeah, but our wage bill is 100 million less than yours. Yes, but you spent 300 million pound more than us. It's all to protect their club from potential failure. The maddest part is if you don't spend, you are going to fail anyway by not winning. But it's a spin. It's the spin doctor approach, but we can spin it that we haven't really fouled because we're only the fourth highest spenders. And therefore coming third means we're achieving more than we should. For me, I'm the other way. It's like, fuck you. Go and spend more money. Let us compete, especially when all of our clubs are owned by billionaires. Now, like I've said, there's nuance to this and people will ignore the nuance and they'll play dumb. Spending money alone doesn't guarantee you success. We all know this. Chelsea this season are an example. The Glazers are an example of this. But if your team's being run well, as Arsenal are right now, you don't need to throw in that comment of, but what if you spend it wrong? You trust your club, you trust your manager. So therefore, you should demand they spend. I understand it if your club's being run like Chelsea, that you'd be very scared of spending another £400 million this summer because once bitten, twice shy. But if you back your manager and you back the direction your club is going in, there should be no excuse to not demand them to spend more money. So it just becomes a nonsense conversation, again, about trying to protect yourself. People don't want to be clipped up of going, oh, this is amazing, and then it doesn't go right. I'd much rather celebrate, by the way, this summer, signing Harry Kane and maybe it going wrong because it was big money, than signing Weghorst for £4 million. Like, give me the big players that could potentially create greatness with the downside that they might flop and I'll get laughed at versus not spending the money. It's crazy to me. It really is crazy to me.
I agree completely. And the Jadon Sancho point is funny because, earlier on when I said what I said, like if Jadon Sancho was having a Martinelli season, no one's going to bring up the 350 grand a week. But because he isn't, they're going to bring it up. So like, this is the thing for me. You have to spend big. now to stay in this market, specifically given our competition in Man City, given our competition in the Champions League. So you've got to spend big to get to those levels. And from Arsenal's perspective, you know, even let's assume Saka leaves your football club, who are you going to get on the right wing? Who? Like Moussa Diaby, Kvaratskhelia, whoever? Like, it's just, you know, it's not like it's not like you're getting someone transcendental that's gonna be levels above Bukayo Saka. Like, you know, it's just he's a very good player. He's developing. It's linear improvement. Okay, I'm gonna trust the process. No pun intended. And I'm going to give him the money. Simple.
I get that. Someone here said, you guys are looking at this one-dimensionally. You could spend on more than players. You could improve transport to away games. Of course, but we're not looking at it one-dimensionally. We're talking about transfers and new contracts specifically. So we're in that realm. So, of course, it's a one-dimensional conversation. We're not talking about where should all the money be spent. And of course, a club shouldn't waste every penny on transfers and salaries. That's why clubs have a cap of around 65 to 70% of their turnover. So I do get where you're coming from. And somebody else here says, you guys are ignoring the nuance of your own conversation. Let me know what the nuance is here, my friend. And like I've said, I'm not advocating reckless spending on the wrong players. I'm advocating well-run clubs, spending the right money on the right people, rewarding the quality players. If you think that's wrong, let me know why. Do you reckon football transfer market will be a similar financial crash that sees clubs go back to paying normal fees?
Nope.
Not right now. No. I mean,
prices are going to go up, if anything. It ain't going to go back down.
Fans are going to keep paying it. Fans are going to keep buying. The Premier League look like they're going to launch their own app soon to watch games on, which will make them even more money, which means transfers will be even more expensive. So, yeah, not right now, personally, that it's growing too much. Speaking of big transfers, I want to ask you this. Neymar is linked to a move to the Premier League. Man United, Newcastle, Chelsea's name's coming up. Would you sign Neymar at Liverpool?
Would I sign Neymar at Liverpool? Oh, you threw me a curveball there because I didn't think about it from my own perspective. Like, here's the thing. Because I think we have a ready-made team, I think it works. I think Neymar works at Liverpool. I think Neymar works at City. He probably works there, but I don't see him working at the other clubs. Like, here's the thing. Neymar needs to be the last piece in order for it to be anything. Like, you have to have everything ready, everything set in stone. Last piece, boom, Neymar. That's the only way it works. But for me, Neymar signing for Chelsea, like, or any of these clubs, like, it's really, listen, I love Neymar, right? But he just doesn't do it consistently. And I don't think his mind is in football like that, like it used to be 10 years ago. I mean, we've seen him in an interview, I think it was like a year ago, talking about MLS already. I'm like, bro, you're literally like 29, 30. Like, you're supposed to be maybe even hitting your best ever numbers. I mean, it's funny enough, we've seen Lewandowski, you know, play his best ever football at 34, 35. He's still playing at a very high level to this very second. He's you know, and look, man, I don't want to be one of them people who go like, can he do it at a cold, rainy night in Burnley? But at the same time, I just don't think Neymar works at this point in time with Neymar's current motivation, with what's going on. I mean, you look at the PSG fans, he's played for their club, won them a whole lot of stuff as well, been part of the team that won them so many trophies, and they're turning on him because it's like almost he's just disinterested, to be honest with you. And I think the drama that comes along with Neymar is not worth it. And once again, I keep the same energy. This goes back to the previous conversation that me and Terry had, where I mentioned availability. Neymar's biggest problem currently is availability. He hasn't been available at a top level for the last 5-6 years. So you need to recognize, if I do bring in Neymar, he ain't about to play 38 Prem games. You need to have that in your head right off the bat. You know, best case scenario you could get is 22, 23, 24, 25 games tops. If he plays 25 games, you've gotten Neymar, you know? So, like, for me personally, I wouldn't do it. Wouldn't sign him for us. Even now thinking about it, I can't lie, it's just not available enough. So for me, I think Neymar's time at the top level, I don't want to say it's done because I think he could still do it, but I just think he has too many injuries, and maybe his mind ain't at like that when it comes to football, and he ain't that motivated. And people saying check Neymar's numbers, okay, no problem. But when we bring up other players and their numbers, you start getting upset. So, like, do you want us to have a numbers debate, or do you want us to have a numbers debate? Because I look at Neymar, he's not motivated, he's not available over the last 5-6 years. Make no mistake. And Terry will tell you this. 10 years ago, if we were doing this YouTube video, we would have been talking about Neymar taking over from Messi and Ronaldo. Neymar being the next man up. Neymar being the guy when Messi and Ronaldo eventually, drop off. He's going to be the Ballon d'Or winner. He's going to be the best player in Europe. He's never hit those heights. So people get upset, but it's the truth. I understand Neymar is the last, bastion of Joga Bonito. And you all watch him. You're like, yes, he's the last winger who can do this. I understand. He's fantastic to watch. Don't get me wrong. But availability is an ability. And what he's done on the pitch has not hit Neymar heights. It's the truth. I'm sorry if you get upset.
In the last 2 seasons, he's had 13 injuries. And again, my biggest concern with him, legitimately, maybe he's out now as well, injured with an ankle surgery. You're not going to have him in February every year, so you miss him. I rate him as a football player. I just don't rate him as a professional. And I don't think he's professional enough for where any of our teams are right now. He's such a luxury item because of the lack of availability. Plus, he's 31. And as I say, 13 injuries in 2 years. He's getting older. He always misses a lot of the business end of the season. That's a worry. And if you're not worried about that, I really have to ask people why that isn't a concern. And again, people love Neymar. They love what he's done on the pitch, how he looks, how he performs, the way he delivers. And he is a brilliant player. I think he also suffers with a little bit of, and please forgive this comparison, there's a little bit of the Lingard effect here. The people still talk about him like he's young. He's 31. They're still talking about him like he's 24 and he's going to improve. He's probably past his best now. He's only going to get slower. He's only going to get stiffer as he gets older. And I think with the amount of money he would cost you, coupled in with salary, and on top of that, the lack of availability, the money could be better spent elsewhere. It really could be better spent elsewhere. I think if you're a team like City and he comes in and is kind of happy to play second fiddle to Grealish or compete with Grealish, then it ain't too bad because you've got that quality squad around you already. But if it's a team like, say, Man United or Chelsea or Arsenal, where he's going to be your main guy, I don't think you can rely on him. I don't. Someone here says Terry's got an agenda against skillful players. It's nothing to do with his skill. His skill's brilliant. But how good is that skill going to be for me when he's sitting on the bench for 2 or 3 months of the season out injured?
Guys, numbers don't lie. If you look at numbers, since his move to PSG, 20 games, 17 games, 15 games, 18 games, 22 games, 20 games this season. The numbers don't lie. He's just an injury-prone player, unfortunately for him. So,
I didn't even look at the amount of. I just looked at his injury record. I was looking at his career statistics now. That is crazy. In the league, he's not played more than 22 league games for PSG in 7 years. Yeah, you can't buy that. You can't do that.
You can't.
Do you know what? If he's on a free transfer and on pay as you play, yes, free transfer, pay as you play. But no, you can't be dropping. When does his deal even run out? Is his contract over soon? Is that why he's leaving? Because if he's got a year left on his contract, how long's left on it? According to, let me just go to his profile here on Transfer Market. When's his contract running out? Doesn't even say. Oh no, it doesn't even. Oh no, 2025. The man's got 2 years left. They're going to charge you 80 million for a man that plays 20 games. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Fuck that. That's
no one's trying to pay that.
No one's doing. No one is going to do that. It's crazy. I'm certainly not. Super chat here says, speaking of Neymar, are any X Factor players that will realistically move this summer who by themselves will make any team much better? Is that the type of thing? Sorry, or is that type of player a thing of the past?
I don't think that type of player is the thing in the
No,
past.
I mean, if
still X Factor players now all over Europe.
Mbappe, if he joins Real Madrid or a big team, would be that. I actually think Harry Kane joining the right team would be an X Factor player. Now, he may not be the most exciting and glamorous player for people, but you're telling me if he joins, we talk about Chelsea, if he joins Chelsea's chances of top 4 and a trophy grow exponentially. If he joins Man United, similar thing. I think. You look at Declan Rice joining Arsenal. Again, not a skillful baller, but someone that can elevate their team in a massive way. You've got the player at Napoli that I think will stay, the Cavadonna, everyone calls him. You've got Osimhen, who I think could have a massive impact somewhere if it's the right move. So there are some. I just don't think there are as many And maybe it's because I'm older. I don't see the world as having as many superstars as it used to. I'm not in awe of them as I used to be, maybe. I don't know, but
They don't have the same aura, but there are X factor players. Like I know for a fact Barca want a right winger. You're telling me Mo Salah is not an X factor player? He is. Osimhen is an X factor player.
I'd take him at United. I'd take him at United.
Leao, for example, from AC Milan. There's plenty of players. I can't lie to you that there are they're X factor players. Just because they're not Jago Benito doesn't mean that they're not X factor. They are X factor and they will win you games of football. So
I hear that. This here says Neymar's biggest problem, he is the Jamie Lannister of the football world. He's more involved with his sister than he is with football, allegedly. Question for Terry. Would you go for Tony? I would sign Tony at Man United as long as this ban isn't going to keep him out for half the season. Because imagine you drop 50 M's on him, then he gets banned for 6 months. It's crazy. So I think he might be a player that you see people.
It's reportedly even longer than 6 months. Some people saying 3-4 years. Like
it could be. So yeah, I wouldn't until we know that. If we remove that issue purely on football, I'd take Tony tomorrow. Again, if we'd have had Tony instead of Veghorst his last 6 months, we'd have made top 4 by now. I just think there'd be
same, by the way. Same.
Yeah.
Same. I still remember post the Brentford game. I came up here and gave Tony so much credit because he troubled our defense. He's unbelievable, honestly.
This year says Rice and Caicedo is a must. But we've seen this before. The longer United are linked to a player, we won't get them. I believe it when I see it. I do feel that fear. I do feel that fear from a lot of Arsenal fans. But there we go. Hassam, always a pleasure to speak to you, bro. It really is. Viewers, you're absolutely amazing. Please make sure you hit the like button before you leave and subscribe. We'll be back next week. Me and Big Steve are actually on tomorrow. We changed the days around this week because Steve is still on his way back from Madrid. So we'll be with him tomorrow. Until next time, everybody, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again very, very